One of the best things about the movies is that they often find ways to show our biggest strengths and weaknesses about ourselves. And much of the time these great stories show us that we're more alike than not. One thing most of us have in common is that we're all at least a little curious about what's going on behind closed doors. What's that strange noise coming from behind the fence, coming from the basement window, or maybe even coming from next door? And in the world of suburbia, who knows what dark secrets could be hiding? Greetings all you movie junkies and entertainment lovers, and welcome to another review. Today we're going to be talking about the 1989 cult classic, The Burbs. The Burbs follow suburban homeowner Ray Peterson, who is home on a week-long vacation, or at least that's what he tells his wife Carol. Late one night, he starts hearing strange noises coming from the basement of his recently moved-in reclusive neighbors, the Klopeks. Ray and his fellow neighbors Art Weingartner and Vietnam War veteran Mark Rumsfeld gradually begin to suspect that the Klopeks may be ritualistic murderers, which Ray himself doesn't want to believe, but he can't help feeling that something is wrong. Then, on another night, they secretly observe the youngest of the Klopeks, Hans, carrying an oversized bag to their curbside garbage can and aggressively mashing it down, suspecting it to be a dead body. Then, on the following morning, Ray, Mark, and Art search the garbage truck for human remains after the Klopeks' trash is collected, but ultimately find nothing. Just when they think they might be fooling themselves, Mark's wife Bonnie finds their fellow neighbor Walter's dog running loose. Worried about the elderly man or looking for evidence of foul play, Ray, Art, the Rumsfelds, and teenage neighbor Ricky Butler break into Walter's house and find overturned chairs and Walter's toupee, but no Walter. Ray collects the dog, leaves a note for Walter, as well as slipping the toupee back in through the mail slot. Art then later tries to convince Ray that the Klopeks may have used Walter as a human sacrifice, Ray himself becoming further convinced when his dog digs up a human femur from along the Klopeks' fence line. By this point though, Ray's wife Carol becomes tired of the men's antics and organizes a welcome visit to the Klopeks. While the Petersons and Rumsfelds meet Hans, Ruben, and Dr. Warren Klopek, Art attempts to snoop around the Klopeks' backyard and ends up getting chased out by their large dog. Just when it seems that the Klopeks may be clean after all, Ray secretly reveals to Art and Mark that he found Walter's mail and toupee at the Klopeks, proving that they had been in Walter's house. The next day, Ray sends Carol and their son David to Carol's sisters. When the Klopeks themselves leave for the day, Art and Ray enter their backyard to search for Walter's corpse and try to find out the truth once and for all. But they may end up getting a lot more than they bargained for. I absolutely love this movie. I've watched it so many times at this point I could probably launch a one-man show where I literally reenact the whole movie myself. The concept of the movie I think is just brilliant. If you're someone like me who has grown up and lived in any kind of suburban neighborhood, I think there's a lot of aspects of this movie that you will relate to. Joe Dante really was the perfect person to direct this because of his offbeat dark comedic style, which personally to me works better in this movie than any of his others. The look and feel of the movie is very bright, very colorful, and very much captures that idyllic suburban lifestyle, especially with the cinematography, which is fantastic and really contributes to capturing that tone. And then there's the Klopek house, which is in complete contrast and is run down, the grass is dead, there's strange noises in the middle of the night, all the things that the rest of the neighborhood is not. It quite literally is the thorn sticking out amongst everything else. It's very reminiscent to the Munsters house, which is ironic considering that it was filmed in the exact same street where the Munsters house was, which in reality isn't a real street at all. In fact, it's the famous Colonial Street, which for those who don't know, is a completely fake street on the Universal Studios backlot, and has been used in countless other TV shows and movies over the years, but it was probably utilized more in The Burbs than any other film. In fact, at no point during the film do we ever actually leave the fictional neighborhood, very much giving it a rear window feel, which in many ways it was an homage and tribute to. Essentially though, what this film boils down to is that it's about three guys who are so bored with their suburban life that they become unhealthily obsessed with the Klopeks house. And that obsession, that need to know the truth, becomes infectious to us the viewers as well. And the film is made in a way where we go along with the characters because we want to know the truth just as much as them. and it isn't until the end that we look back and realize just how bad these characters have been acting. This film really has a lot to say about the suburban lifestyle, which is mostly kept in the subtext. But what's so great about it is that it's not afraid to have fun with its concept and setting, while still being able to get its message across, to the point where it's actually impressive that it's able to do both, when most films can really only do one or the other. The final double twist, without giving anything away, is just the cherry on top of everything else that's great about this movie. The ending of the film itself went through multiple changes before ending up with what we finally got, which after seeing or reading about, I can honestly say that the ending that we got was pretty much perfect. I think it gets the message heard, but doesn't end on a down note either. And that to me is what I love most about this film, is that it's just so darn entertaining, but also has something to say in addition to the great concept and Joe Dante's great direction. The cast, of course, is another massive part of the film's greatness. Tom Hanks and Carrie Fisher are both great together, and one of the things that's really interesting is that in the original version of the film, we find out that Ray is actually not on vacation at all, but rather lost his job and just hasn't told his wife yet. This is actually pretty major information and more or less is ultimately the reason why Ray becomes obsessed with his neighbors to begin with, as he's trying to put off dealing with his own personal problems. That, I would say, sums up the main message of the movie, which is that you should deal with your own problems first instead of meddling in others. This is also the reason why Art ends up by himself in the original ending, because he hasn't learned this lesson yet. But in the final version of the film, this reveal is nowhere to be found. It's very much hinted at, but never confirmed. I think the reason they ultimately changed this was because they didn't want to end the film on a down note, which again is why in the final version of the film the ending works much better. This reveal makes the message of the film more clear, but ultimately makes the rest of the film no less entertaining. And speaking of the other characters, Art, played by Rick Dukeman, is great in this as well. He mostly only ever played bit parts in films, and had the Burbs been a bigger success at the time, I imagine he would have become a much more famous actor, but we still love him in this role regardless. And making up the rest of the cast, we have Bruce Dern as Rumsfeld, who is the show stealer in absolutely every scene he's in addition to Wendy Shaw, who plays his deceased wife Bonnie, as well as Courtney Gaines, brother Theodore, and Henry Gibson, who are also great as the Klopeks. Even Dick Miller and Robert Picardo as the two garbage men are great too. But for me personally, my favorite character in the movie, and the one I relate to most, is Corey Feldman as Ricky Butler, who really is just there to try and throw a party and have fun while his parents are away, while also getting a kick out of witnessing the mayhem that's going on around him. To me, he's always felt like the manifestation of us, the viewers, simply watching and enjoying the events unfold.
Okay, hip cats, get off my car.
Get
off my
dude,
car.
You should hang out for a little bit. Chill out with us. We've got the pizza dude coming.
But the one aspect that really brings the film together, and it could not do without, is the absolutely amazing score by the late great Jerry Goldsmith, which really elevates and brings the film to life in a way a film score is supposed to. Overall, The Burbs may be a little too comedic, or perhaps not comedic enough for others, but to me, it's just one of those perfect movies that I know I'm going to have a good time with every time I watch it. And after all, isn't that the main goal of a movie, to be entertained in some way or another? Well, for me, The Burbs is very high up there, to the point where I actually made it a tradition to watch every year. So if you're looking to be entertained, if you can't help but be curious, then look no further than The Burbs. Thanks for watching this review. Be sure to subscribe for more videos, and until next time, be sure to consume as much entertainment as humanly possible, and I will see you in the next video.
God, I love this street.